Let's be honest, aging is something we all think about, but many of us don't talk about it out loud. We live in a world that praises youth, speed, and innovation, but rarely wisdom, patience, or experience. So today, I want to ask a bigger question. What does the world really think about aging? And more importantly, what do we believe about our own value as we get older? So I've been spending time with our elders lately. Yes, one of my last roles as a live-in caregiver. Um, and then I've done some caregiving still along the way, but typically a majority of the people my wife and I feel like we spend our time with um, serving is an older population, an elder population. And I had an opportunity to visit with a friend's parents this week, and yeah, so aging the aging population has been on my mind. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun getting to spend time with them. I haven't seen them in years, and we're all in different stages of life. And, to kind of be able to sit and chat with them, it was just, they get to come alive a little bit. And yeah, it was just great. And that in turn has kind of, it's led me, I've spent a lot of time in healthcare, as you know, if you're a listener. And I, I want to do something, and I'm in the process of starting something that, I think encapsulates a little bit of what I'm about, and, you know, a little bit of this conversation will lead into it. And that's, caring for the aging population. But there's plenty of care for them medically. I'm talking about hitting some of these other points in between, these connection points of where they still know that they're human beings, that maybe their knowledge is still valued, that, yeah, make sure I'm recording, that, you know, just the humanity part of it. Because in caring for old people, you know, when we were living caregivers, this gentleman lived in a community that had people around him and had people to check on him. You have other communities that are kind of like these assisted living type situations. And with those, they have activities and I guess community, and but you're seeing the administrator, the staff, I guess if they have PT staff or different whoever, um, which is good too. But then you have people like the ones that I visited with who are out in the sticks, kind of like where I grew up. Um, and other than maybe their children and grandchildren, they don't get a lot of visitors. And they live on property. And so they have them. But then there's people out there who have nobody, who don't have a son and grandchildren, who live kind of on the same property. And, that's kind of an area I want to cover. And then maybe also with there's other people, even if you live on the property, it's like a peace of mind check. If you work a different shift, people work overnight. Sometimes people have to take trips out of town. And if you had somebody who could check on your parents and make sure they're okay, why not? That's the gap I want to fill. Because I feel that's where the real need is. I already participated in the corporate healthcare system for a long time. And that's kind of made me think of some of this, what we're going to talk about, and why I want to talk about aging. Aging is generally seen as decline. They don't want to, there's no money in prevention, there's only money in treating sick people. Um, Man, yeah, no money in prevention. Aging isn't a disease that happens to everyone. Therefore, you know, there were some podcasts I heard. I mean, it's been years, but, where I guess they were talking about maybe taking metformin to regulate blood sugar, even if you didn't need it, as a longevity drug type of a thing. Uh, so, yeah. But as I spend time with them and I think about me approaching 50, what you're able to contribute, where you're able to contribute. I even looked at, I asked ChatGPT, like, how many CEOs are there of companies globally over like the age of 79? Um, it had a hard time answering. It said maybe 150, maybe, I think, I don't know. And it wasn't, the point of it was, is, I think we have a president who's probably in their 70s, and kind of this, I'm going to go through how some of the world sees aging, but if that was such a popular age to run shit, then why wouldn't there be more CEOs of companies of that age? And of course, they give us these answers of, well, they're busy enjoying the twilight years. Their contribution is different through philanthropy and mentoring and yada, 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 um, which is true. I guess the median range for CEOs of companies was like 50 to 55, I want to say. Um, Yet we have somebody who runs the country who's got 20 years over that. Okay. Just saying. We're not talking that. I'm just pointing out facts. So, all right. The Western view of aging is aging as decline. In the US and much of the West, they tend to see aging as loss of relevance, usefulness, and even identity. Once people retire, the message often sounds like, thanks for your service, now step aside. Here's the truth. Many of the same people are being pushed out of the workforce are the ones holding the wisdom, the patience, the leadership that the younger generations desperately need. It's almost like they're trading long term wisdom for short term speed. What would it would look like if we measured worth not by productivity but by perspective? It's a good question. You know, I asked ChatGPT how does what are some of the different views of aging culturally, geopolitically, or geolocatedly, something like that. Um, but yeah, here in the U.S., maybe they're contributors to the economy. They spend money. Um, Sometimes they are the economy for healthcare services. I guess without people to treat, without sick people, wouldn't need doctors, nurses, home health, healthcare workers, all that, drugs. So in a way, I don't know. It is odd because, they're not out there driving long haul truckers, delivering goods, this and that. Um, so not contributing in that way. But they have a lot of wisdom. I enjoy talking most, like, just having a conversation. There's a lot you can learn just by asking questions. They might not be up on the latest tech, but tech can fail us at any point. Everything is electronic now. I mean, internets and whatnot go down. A lot of things go down. All right. Let's talk about the Eastern view of aging, aging as honor. A lot of Eastern cultures, Japan, China, Korea, aging is respected. Elders are the anchors of family and community. They're seen as guides and not burdens. They carry the stories, the traditions, and the lessons. Um, it says Japan even has programs called Silver Human Resource Centers, spaces where retired people continue to work, teach, mentor younger folks. That's purpose in motion. Imagine what it would look like here, a culture that doesn't push older people out but pulls them back in. Yes, the stories, the traditions, the lessons. Is that where we get it wrong? We're so obsessed with speed and innovation, and we have created some of the greatest tech that can conglomerate all the wisdom, but I don't know. Is all the wisdom out there yet? Is somebody out there still holding a story of something we don't know anything about that ChatGPT can't reach out from? I mean, I'm going to upload this podcast, and whatever I say that ChatGPT here said, that'll go, and people might ask a question they could pull from this. So sometimes, unless we get these things recorded, then we don't have the database to pull from. Hence why storytelling is important. Going out and getting these stories, talking to people, recording these stories. Indigenous and communal cultures. I'm Latino. I can get behind this. Maybe we're a bit indig. Indig Texans. I mean, before Texas was Texas, the brown people, my people, were here. That's right. So, elders are sacred. They're not just respected, they're central to how communities survive and thrive. Oral histories, traditions, wisdom, and identity alive. I think a lot of like Indian culture, in those societies, contribution doesn't end when you stop working. It actually begins when you have something to pass on. Man, that's a powerful shift. Achievement to meaning when you have something to pass on. You know, I come from a culture that moved to an area that was sold assimilation, which, mm, yeah, but they skipped out on some of the tradition. And I don't know. It was like, I mean, I know how to cook, but it's like my grandmother never passed down any recipes. She's like, "Ah, I don't know. She just knew how to make it. You're either going to have to watch, but most of the men on the Mexican side can cook. Europe and productive aging movement. Let's see. Parts of Europe, especially Scandinavia, they're redefining what it means to grow older. Instead of retirement as the end, they talk about active aging, volunteering, mentoring, part time work that keeps purpose alive. Governments, they're realizing adults aren't a burden, they're an asset. They call it the experience dividend. What if we started thinking of experience as currency? It is. I mean, the person who was in charge of me didn't have the level of education that I had, but she had 20 years experience. So she knew her way around, you know, she had seen everything they couldn't even teach me in school, all the ways that it probably changed. So yes, experience counts for a lot. Um, a global shift, the second act economy. Let's see, what does it say? Something big happening is globally, especially since COVID. People over 55 are reinventing themselves. Under 55 too. Starting businesses, creating content, mentoring, and redefining what contribution looks like. It's called the longevity economy and it's worth trillions. That's not decline, that's evolution. People are realizing you don't age out of purpose, you just age into a new kind of impact. Um, I agree. It's, because I was laid off during the pandemic and decided not to return to corporate and decided to do what it is I'm doing, I look at people who had taken all the paths that I wanted to take, but I ended up on this one. And they're all kind of in the same place that I am, and they're kind of in my same age bracket and whatnot. Um, Concerned about largely the same things, asking the same questions. So the point of that is that, even if I had done any of the other things I wanted to do, I'd probably still be here in the same place, asking the same questions and still figuring out how I'm going to contribute because yeah, COVID have impacted a lot of things and a lot of people had to pivot. And a lot of people decided they didn't want to do what they were doing and decided to take it a different direction. But that's what's great about today, the economy, the way it works, connectivity. Um, you can get all your shit stolen in cryptocurrency. I guess that sucks, but it is a more global economy. I mean, you can take payments and all the cash, the Venmo, the Cash App, the this, the that, everything, not just relying on central banking system, which of course they don't like. Mm. See, maybe the real question isn't what do we lose as we age, but what do we finally gain? I think perspective, patience, wisdom, the ability to see what truly matters. I don't know, in a world obsessed with youth and speed, maybe the greatest rebellion is slowing down and offering wisdom. So if you're listening today and you've ever felt like the best days are behind you, I want you to remember this. You still have something to teach, something to give, and someone who needs to hear it. So if today's episode made you think differently about aging and value, share it with somebody who needs that reminder. And if you want to keep these kinds of unfiltered conversations going, make sure you follow me on all the platforms, which is in the link tree below. We may grow older, but that doesn't mean we stop growing up. Until next time, stay true, stay grounded, keep showing up for your house, and I'll keep showing up here at the Men of the House. And remember, till next time, make sure that you go out and be the person that you would want to meet.